First Generation Talks, episode number 7. Man, Dramos here, Radimus as always.
Yes, I am still here.
Special guest today, Maluca. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Man, we're going, right? We're all in this together. Envy.
Right.
Anybody that's not super familiar, why don't you give us a little bit of background? I know you're obviously a singer from New York City. Give us a little background about yourself, what you do, and kind of how you got into this whole music industry stuff.
Well, I'm born and raised in New York. My parents are from the Dominican Republic, so I'm first generation. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. I got into this just really crazy. I met like Diplo at like a karaoke night one day, and we just stayed friends. And I was like, oh, I make really weird music. You want to hear it? And he was like, yeah, of course. And that's how Geraso was born.
That's crazy. So, like, really randomly at a karaoke thing? That's what I was curious about. I heard the Diplo thing, but was it like you guys were just at the same spot randomly?
Yeah.
That's so crazy. Life is amazing, bro. That little shit like that is just absolutely amazing.
I was the bartender at this bar.
Wait, so you were the bartender?
I was the bartender, yeah.
Wow. So what do you just approach him and be like, hey, like, I make music. I know who you are?
Ew, no, never.
Okay.
Right.
So how does that conversation?
Like, I'm a fucking New Yorker. We don't do that shit.
I mean, shit, it's networking, though.
How does that happen?
No.
Because a lot of people sometimes they like just look at it in the movies and they see stardom over like the humanity of somebody, and usually it's genuine human connection or as genuine as possible and shit like that.
It was such a long time ago. He wasn't like popping like that. Number one, he was just like a local like a hot local DJ putting out mixtapes. Like you had to like be. It was like underground. He was like still underground. You know what I mean? For the most part. Also, I had no idea. I had that like I like ripped, you know, when it was like LimeWire, I had like ripped his mixtape.
Yeah.
But I didn't know what he looked like, you know what I mean? Like I didn't know him like that. So I had no idea who he was. Honestly.
So this is probably like still like when he's doing the party in Philly, like with the Holotronics thing or whatever it was, I think at the time.
I think it was like right after that. I think it was like, you know, he had just like him and MIA were broken up at that point.
Gotcha. Okay.
But he wasn't big. You know what I mean? He was like getting big, but he wasn't big. I didn't know who he was when I met him.
Oh, okay. So it really was just like a chance, like, hey, just keep talking like normal people at that point.
Yeah.
That's funny. All right. So I kind of want to talk about though, like music wise though, like you obviously are making left of center music. I'm curious. It's very different than what we'd expect. Let's say like a Latin music artist to make. Let's say it's a mixture of so many different things. Do you remember like kind of what some of the feedback was from like the Hispanic kind of community when you were putting out some of the records you're putting out? This is wild.
I feel like everybody was really into it.
Yeah.
You know, even like the purist, whatever the hell that means. But everyone was pretty into it. I remember doing my first show in Dominican Republic, and it was packed. It was like a packed freaking show. You know what? I don't remember the name of the venue, but there was like a line around the block. It was packed. Oh, in Santo Domingo. Oh,
the capital. Fire.
In the capital. And I want to say La Zona Colonial, but I'm not sure. Anyways, it was in Santo Domingo. And, you know, me too. I was like, I don't know if they're going to be into it, blah, blah, blah. But, like, the art community in DR is massive.
Right.
It's cool. I mean, that's
like
cool.
They're really changing things.
Yeah, it's a disenfranchised perspective from the Dominican Republic, I think, just because so much of like bachata and merengue and reggaeton, like those kind of like genres as far as like music goes and for artists break through. But there's a lot of subculture in DR, but there's just not enough, a lot of resources. Because even like in Santo Domingo, that's a privilege. Like my family is from like Sajoma, Santiago, and Santiago is a city, but then like from the Campos, you have a lot of artists that are like talented, whatever the case may be, and they're tapped into what's going on in the world and feel represented by you. But there's not like, you know, there's no structure to like be able to focus it through. So that's dope that you were able to go out there and be. I mean, you sound like Dominican from New York in your music. Like it's like brolic, it's gangsta, but it's fun and upbeat, and it's just like I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that you will find some. I'm not surprised that you will find a community to resonate out there because so much of that is out there also, just in different BPMs and shit.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is like the power of the internet. This is like the generation of the internet, you know? And so these are like all the kids, you know, that feel, you know, like myself, you know what I mean? That feel like, well, I'm into everything. I'm into a lot of different things, you know what I mean? For me, growing up, it was pretty normal for us to like start our days, start our nights in Williamsburg at the bachata, like, you know, we would go like see like live bachata, you know, at like 7 p.m. And then we would go to like Speed, you know what I mean? Then we like hit up Joe's Pub real quick. And then we end up at some rave in the, you know, at some like techno rave, you know, in somebody's random loft, you know? So it wasn't like, you know, and that's because of like the internet and MySpace and all that stuff like that, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's funny. I think even outside of just you, I mean, during that kind of time frame, you saw like even like ASAP Mob, I feel like was a part of that, like pushing a lot of the boundaries of what's expected from, let's see, even for them, it was rappers. Like the way they dress was different at the time. You know, they're mixing streetwear with high fashion, and they're talking about hanging out in, you know, quote unquote hipster spots, and they're just kind of melding these different worlds together. I love that about, I think, our generation is that we were unafraid to start pushing the envelope of what is like expected of us. You know what I mean? Like, what is the sound? What are we supposed to look like? What are we supposed to stand up for? And then now that paved the way for somebody, I feel like a Bad Bunny to have this wide open lane to really start revolutionizing kind of a lot of the generational kind of curses that a lot of us kind of grew up with and push the boundaries of what our art could be, you know?
Right, exactly. I mean, we're like the generation of the mashup. We're like the mashup generation, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and even within that, outside of just the music, I know you've always been very vocal on, you know, social issues, political issues, and then things like that. I mean, where does that kind of background come from? Like, what is the inspiration behind you feeling so, you know, moved to have to speak on so many of these different things?
It's in my blood, just to be honest with you. Like, my grandmother was a bad bitch during like the Civil War in Dominican Republic. So my aunt fell in love with this soldier, an American soldier, and the Dominican army was like peeping that like an American soldier was coming to my house, and they didn't like that. And they tried to like roll up to my grandmother's house and, you know, flex. And she came to the door with a machete and was like, "What's good? What's good? Say I won't." You know, she just had that attitude, you know. You know, she was also, you know, the story goes that she worked for like an abortion doctor back in the day and like really helped like women who like were violated or whatever, like get abortions like on the low. But yeah, and just growing up, so my mom remarried, and my stepdad, you know, we would have like these major New Year's Eve parties, because I grew up in a loft downtown. And like, it'd be like every political person in the Lower East Side would come into my house and it'd be like, you know, cheers to the revolution and, you know, the Sandinistas and Nicaragua and like all this crazy shit. I mean, their idea of like a fun summertime for me is like, oh, you should like go volunteer in Nicaragua. Like that was how I grew up. So.
That's dope.
It's beautiful because then, I mean, obviously, I feel like the energy is one and the same. Like I think it was Quincy Jones who said this in an interview. He said, you can't make music more than who you are. So it's like wherever you end up being as a human being, that's the capacity that you're going to have in your music, and vice versa. As you evolve and as you become more like yourself, the music starts incorporating all of these aspects. So like, I mean, I'm Dominican and I'm a rapper, so I already know like the growing up, I would assume, I'm not going to say for sure, but I would assume you'll be nudged in bachata or merengue, or even for you, like it sounds like a tambor, like hype, like club. Like what made you kind of start taking those genre bending risks and being like, yo, I'm from New York and yes, but I have my own perspective of the way it should be represented.
Well, also my dad worked in the music industry for a long time. He worked for Delicious Vinyl. And his artists were like, you know, Tone Loc and Samantha Fox and Jungle Brothers. And so there was like a lot of music in my house. And my dad, you know, my dad was young when he came here. So he was also like exploring, you know, all, you know, culture in New York City. And so he would like put me on, he'd go to London and he'd be like, yo, everybody's wearing Doc Martens. Like, I got you a pair. And so, but really what tipped it off was like, my friend put me onto this band called ESG. Do you know ESG?
No.
No, I'm not familiar.
You are. So they have a song called UFO, and it's like one of the biggest breakdancing songs ever.
Gotcha.
But when you hear, you'd be like, oh shit, okay. They're sisters from they're New Rican. And they had a band and they played like congas, and they used like electronic, you know, 808s and instruments. And when I heard it, I was like, OMG, this is out of control. And they're from the Bronx. Like, they're from the Bronx. And they were influenced by like Africa Bambaataa and like all this shit. And like they were making like electronic music and rapping with congas. I was like, wait, what's happening here? And I was like, oh shit, like I could do that. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna do that. And that's how it was born. And they're from the 70s.
Wow.
These women. So they had been doing it. Like, I'm not new, you know?
I love like the level of influence that comes into play. Like for me, like I've always listened to everything, and I remember even like being into a lot of like punk and hardcore bands growing up and things like that. I never felt represented until I discovered Bad Brains, and then it was like, whoa, here are like these Rastafarian dudes playing punk music and hardcore music better than, you know, than half the other people out there. That like opened my eyes to like there is no boundary to what I could be doing. You know what I'm saying? I don't have to be this. I don't have to be that. And that's like such a beautiful thing, because I remember growing up always them people being like, oh, well, that's like something white, or that's not something that, you know, I'm Puerto Rican, so that's not something a Latino's supposed to be into. So to see all these different influences, it's just like a beautiful thing to see like the people that paved the way, and then now us kind of carrying that torch on to opening up the minds of that next generation, you know?
Totally. Yeah, I mean, you know, I was like that girl, like listening to New York, and my, you know, and my aunts being like, "Pero esa china rara,"
right?
You know what I mean? They're just like, what are you listening to?
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, I mean, and it's just dope because that's what you need to push the boundaries of everything. And I mean, even just, I love the political stuff you're talking about, but then even seeing your social media recently is what really made me want to interview you was your openness to kind of just talk about like this whole time period that we're going through right now, you know?
The daily diaries, I started checking out a couple of them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
yeah, I know, I got to do another one. But I get shy. I'm like really low key shy. I'm like mad shy.
But it's dope because I think stuff like that, it humanizes everybody. You know what I mean? It's like it's very easy to feel like we're the only ones feeling a certain type of way sometimes. You know, like we're the only ones like we wake up one day and we're feeling super motivated and we're ready to go and just like tackle the day. And the next day wake up and be like, yo, I just want to fucking stay in bed all day. And you feel guilty about it, but it's until somebody like yourself, somebody who you follow, starts saying like, yo, it's cool. I have the same type of thing. Some days I want to go work on something. Some days I want to just sit around watching Netflix. And like either way is good. Like, you know, listen to yourself. It's better for your mental health and not guilt yourself in either direction. You know, that's what I loved about seeing what you've been posting recently.
Cool. Thanks for the feedback. I'm gonna do more.
No, it's good. And even
what inspired you to do it from the jump too, though? Like, what was it? Something like your fans, or you were talking to people in DMs? Like, what made you want to be like, okay, I'm gonna post these every day on my page and keep it funky, you know?
Well, I only did one actually. I only did one, and but yeah, I just, you know, I was just like, you know what? Fuck it. You know, like I'm in my head. I need to hear what other people are thinking. You know what I mean? I need to like get out of my head and like, you know, and like I said, like I'm like pretty like, you know, it's funny because the Maluca persona is like, she's fabulous, you know, and my government name is Natalie. I'm fabulous too, but she's like Sasha Fierce. You know what I mean? But like at home, low key, I'm like a nerd, and like I play video games, you know what I mean? Like I'm into like, you know, virtual reality and like whatever.
Right.
But yeah, I was just like, I don't know, fuck it. Like there's no rules right now. It's like I feel like we all got left home alone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like what is going on? There's no rules about like work is like whatever work looks like, it doesn't look like that anymore. How people supposed to put out records, like everything we thought we knew is like completely upside down.
Right.
No, it's true. It's I think it's also like showing us that people are starving for like more of a deeper connection with the people that they follow. You know what I mean? With the people that they're interested in. Like whether somebody follows you for your personality or your music, I think, even like the feedback I just gave you, you're getting that in real time. You're seeing that people want a little bit more, you know what I mean? That people are enjoying having that more human aspect, I've noticed even the more I open up on my IG and these different things like about real shit, like the more engagement I'm getting from people as far as them feeling connected to me and vice versa and them sharing stuff. And it just feels like you're getting, people have been starving for that. And this whole situation has really like, stripped away the veil and made people, really just human again. I think that's really the only way I could put it. I feel like.
Right. And I was just thinking, like, everyone is a celebrity right now. Like everyone, like everyone is an influencer right now, whatever the hell that means. But, which I think is pretty cool. Like literally, like everyone is a chef. Yeah. Everyone is a freaking, it's like everyone is like giving tutorials. I mean, the people who I least expect, everybody's giving a tutorial.
Yeah.
I think it's hilarious, but I love it.
Yeah, it's like part of it, like on the one side, you can tell sometimes who's just like trying to like be proactive and pass the time. But then obviously there are aspects in a lot of people's lives where it's just like, man, thank God you finally had to sit your ass down and focus on this other thing. Because I think what the pressures that come with like being productive nowadays, and especially in this time, is you're supposed to be productive to monetize. You're supposed to be productive to build your career in a higher trajectory. You're supposed to, increase your fame. But it's like, no, everything isn't for social media proof. Everything isn't for validation from like your peer group. A lot of it is just sometimes like just you by yourself. You know what I mean? Like I'm not posting my yoga positions and stretching on the mat in the day, but like, oh shit, my back is like really turning more and more every day. Like that's just for me. Like I don't have to do that. Like, oh, I'm gonna be an MC, but then let me put y'all on to my routine. Like, you know what I'm saying? At least personally, like there are things that it is to share for the public, but there are opportunities to just be able to express yourself and tap into what you've been procrastinating on. And for some people, it's like, it's dope to see people like get brave also. I just hope, it continues though too, It's interesting. I don't know. We've never been through this before. Totally. It's like we've never been all sat down around the world. And it's like very beautiful and interesting and weird to just like analyze as it goes. So.
Yeah, no, it's really crazy. And I think that, in the US, we have the disease of busyness, and we're like constantly running. We're running away. We're running away from ourselves. We're running away from our kids. Right. We don't, we don't like our partners. You know what I mean? We hate our jobs. Like we don't like anything. So we're just like running.
Escapism.
And, yeah, for sure. And Mother Earth was like, get in a corner.
Relax, right. It's a trip because even like the government, you know what I'm saying? Like people don't know how our government really worked and how well it was set up for us to be supported by it until things like this hit, and it's just like, wait a minute, like there's no NFL, there's no baseball season, there's no NBA season, there are no big concerts, there are not these entertainment distractions that are necessary too, because if all you did was watch the news, then you'd be mortified, every day. But it's like when all of these things get away, you're really kind of aware of like how your country is being built and how your country is being run. And it's just like, I hope us as like the society can like take action into our own hands and like take account for like what's really going on and like improve from here, because clearly this shit is not rocking. You know what I mean? Clearly it's not set up for us to really be sustained. Like a $1,200 check 1 month isn't going to be enough,
Right. And that's a good point, and recently I've been thinking about like, I recently, me and my friends, we did a virtual protest, like an at-home protest. And we asked a bunch of people to put their profile picture Black as to be in allegiance with one another.
Right.
And, my question is, it doesn't like like our generation and the younger generation feel called to do something, feel called to action. Like a lot of people didn't even want to post, black out their profile pic or whatever, but then we sit around and we'd be like, yeah, this country's fucked.
Right.
Why is that?
I mean, I think we're spoiled to a degree, I think that we also have had it too good, because I think even seeing the way people haven't even been wanting to follow the rules of like staying at home, you know what I'm saying? Like when it's like the experts telling us like, yo, this is what's actually working, and people are fighting against it, and they're trying to invent all kinds of theories to go against what, experts are telling us and things like that. It's like people are so used to being spoiled that they don't want anything to interrupt that, like, them being able to do their life exactly how they feel like doing it, and it's almost, I don't know, I think a lot of it is that people are too spoiled to like just get off their ass and do something, or I also think that a lot of people don't realize how fucked up things really are, though. We hear about a lot of things like systemic racism and all these different things, and how it's generationally set back people of color. But I really think like it's taking things like seeing the way that this virus has attacked people of color specifically at higher rates, for a lot of people to recognize that shit, like there really is an issue. There really is a gigantic gap between the the coverage that a certain group has and another group has, like the medical attention, the quality, the ability to receive quality medical attention that a certain group has. And it takes it being thrown in our face with people dying at a higher rate in a certain community to see that, and I think that it's going to take a lot more of those things. Like a lot of people just live in their own bubble, and as much access as we have with social media. I was reading in this book, and I can't remember what the quote is exactly, but it was talking about, we live in an era, obviously, where there's endless amounts of information, but because we have the ability to curate things in such a fine way, we end up just like receiving things that agree with our viewpoint. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
Barack Obama spoke about that too when it comes to politics on a world basis.
Yeah, it's like your Instagram feed, like the shit you follow, you're just following stuff that basically is in line with your viewpoint, isn't outside of your own bubble, and that's what ends up happening. We end up living in this world, we're just like seeing things constantly that reinforce our beliefs as opposed to what things that challenge them. I think there's a lot of things like that when it comes to this generation.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I mean, and this is just like a rhetorical question. That was just saying this is just a rhetorical question, but it's like, where does it, like, for a lot of my friends, I feel like we'll sit around and we know these things, you know what I mean? We know about systematic oppression. We know that like Trump is a fucking scam and a murderer, whatever. But then it's like, you want to go to protest? No, girl.
Right.
So what do we do?
Well, I think one of the things that's been toughest to figure out is how to motivate the revolutionary in every single person. Because I've learned not everyone revolts in the same way. Not everyone reacts to change in the same way. Not everybody is inspired the same way. Even though the topics can be agreed upon, a lot of the times I've felt it's tougher. It's easier to find out that people care than it is to enable them to take action behind it. Generally, it can be about their health, their diet, their relationships, marital problems, whatever their career, whatever the case may be. Now, when it comes to a topic, if we're prone to like procrastinate on the things that are immediately positive and effective to ourself and ourself only, now taking the world, taking the government, taking society, and it's just like, all right, people do give a fuck. I think with this specific pandemic, we're too close to like that $1,200 check, unemployment, things are okay. Some people's rents are frozen for a month. The food cabinet is still there, but it may take more dire results. Hopefully not, like I God pray not, but it may take more dire results. But then the other aspect is like, it's like how Malcolm Gladwell explains in The Tipping Point. There are many aspects to something finally breaking through, and everybody has their own role in society, whether that be the connectors, the word of mouth people, whether that be the people who just promote. Then it's going to take corporations to really like, okay, it's not just free shipping on your, you know what I mean? It's not just free shipping. Like, actually, wait, we have to take a stance on this. So it's going to take a lot of different aspects of like society and our community as a whole. And I think within that, people are going to find their own way of revolutionizing, because the person who may have not changed their avatar to Black when they saw you post it did curse out their friend on the phone. you know what I mean? Like they didn't necessarily, maybe they just really liked the picture on their phone, but maybe that did be like, you know what? Nah, we gotta chill the fuck out, and made them scream at, like, I'm about to start screaming at people on the street who don't have their mask and gloves. Like, I don't care what your opinion is on the matter. Like, people are literally dying from this, and we're not taking it serious enough. So I think it's just like,
right.
It's tough because we want instant gratification. You know, we want that instant reaction. We want people to be hit right now, but it's going to take time. And unfortunately, we haven't lived through all of the pandemic. So even if you can read about what has happened in the world, and even though you can read about what has been done in the government, we've only experienced this. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like, how do we fucking... It's tough. It's tough.
Yeah, it's crazy. And like, I can freaking, this is a crazy rabbit hole. Mm-hmm. No, for sure. Absolutely. You know, and you know, this to me really showed me like America's broke, but she has a Gucci belt on. You know what I mean?
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
You know, but I was watching this really interesting.
You should do that, that's what I mean to say, you know? I don't know if you tell me.
But I was watching this interesting article interview with Snowden. The guy from Vice recently, Vice magazine recently interviewed Snowden on what's happening, and it was really. I'll DM it to you. But basically, he was like, you know, we're really, really, really at a major tipping point because our freedom is really being compromised. Like Trump wants of course he wants the USPS, our postal service to go bankrupt. Because how are we're voting through the mail now,
Right.
So anyways.
I mean, it's interesting. I think a lot of things you guys said is super interesting. I think, Rad, what you were saying about instant gratification is definitely, I think, a thing when we're talking about in terms of people protesting, right? I think for a lot of people, they are so used to getting that that instant gratification, and they want, like, when they show up to a protest, let's say, it's like they want to protest and they want Trump out of office just that next day that they protested. You know what I mean? Like that to them would be the only time it's worth it because they're so used to getting instant gratification because that's the life we live right now. But I also think on a note of positivity, I do think political conversations and political figures it's starting to skew younger, and it's starting to skew to people that are outside of the norm. I think you're seeing it in like an AOC who is not your typical political person. She's not your typical political representative. And I think she's then going to inspire that next generation. You know what I mean? And like, maybe we're just not there yet. Maybe it takes a couple more AOCs. It takes the person that she ends up inspiring. It's just like music, right? There's always like that person who is like the first person who like carves it out, but they're not the one who breaks through to the mainstream, and then it takes the next person to kind of like see what they did and then like master a way to kind of make it that it's palatable for everybody. I think that might be kind of a place that we're in right now, whereas you start getting people who are younger and quote unquote cool, you know what I mean, who look a certain way, talk a certain way, and then that is what gets others inspired and gets younger people inspired. That's kind of what I think. Maybe that's like overly optimistic, but that's kind of where I feel it's going to start heading down.
No, not at all. Yeah, I totally agree. I wish. Is it that AOC isn't old enough to run for president?
Yeah, she has.
Oh my God, she would eat Trump alive, honey.
Right.
I love her.
But we need more people like that, because you know what it is when you see people like an Alexandria Ocasio in positions of power and are well educated or well informed of what's going on in the world and whatever the case may be. She is a perfect representation of team building. She's a perfect representation of, I'm not perfect. It is not coming from an ego-based place where it's like, I know everything that's going on consistently, or whatever the case may be. She is consistently being educated. She is consistently being counseled. She is consistently having conversations and dialogue and meeting with groups outside of her immediate circle. And then, so when she goes into Congress and has to talk to whoever the hierarchy is, she keeps the community in mind. You know what I mean? And it's just like, we need more people like that. And I think it's telling. It's like Dramo said, like, conversations like this, and it's why voting has always been such an interesting thing for politicians to like gear towards the elderly as opposed to the younger. It's because the earlier you get people to vote, or at least be politically aware and active in whatever they feel is like comfortable for them, for their preference, that's the operating community. That's going to be those are going to be the members of society for the longest amount of time. So if you get them at 16, 17, 18 thinking about raising the minimum wage, like they're going to be out here for 30, 40, 50 years. They're the ones who are going to be commanding what the country, like where the country moves. So it's like Dramo said, it's like these are actually positive things that we, if anything, it's impossible to break through overnight because it's taking hundreds of years to even get to where we're at now. And if anything, we're like doing it very fast, you know what I mean, at this point. So. But yeah, I'm an optimist too. I don't know. I feel like you gotta, you know what I'm saying, what you see in your mind is what
I'm not pessimistic. I'm both, you know, but I'm just curious. I'm just curious just curious, like
what's the straw that breaks the camel's back? Yeah, like
what's
the thing?
Or not even the thing, you know, because to me, I feel like, you know, like what AOC is good at is enrolling people. And for me, like the key to life, the key to success is enrolling people into your vision. You know what I mean? And getting people on board and really getting people excited. You know what I mean? In whatever it is, right? And whatever it is that you want to do. So I'm just like, yeah, she's really good at like getting people on board and enrolling people and getting people excited about like you know what she's talking about, her vision, and I think we definitely need more of that for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I think we have to start holding people more accountable too. I think for a while we sort of saw it as like, if at least if you're of a certain mindset, it's like Democrat good, Republican bad type of thing, right? But I think the further along it goes, you're realizing neither one really gives a fuck about you. You know, they just care about the bottom line, and we need to start holding them responsible. You know, like look what happened now where Biden gets a nomination. It's really a lot of it is based upon his association with Obama, you know, and now it's like this guy that really doesn't represent any of our interests, let's say, but you know, he's a Democrat, so it's like good Democrat good. And we saw what happened last go around with Bernie and Hillary, where it was like Bernie was obviously not the favorite of the party, so they did whatever they could to get Hillary to have the nomination. And I think, you know, we have to start holding those people accountable, you know, and I think it's starting to happen. You know, they're starting to have to go to platforms other than the CNNs of the world, you know, where they're having to go to the Breakfast Club, they're having to go to, you know, these different things and actually speak to people who speak like the average voter, you know what I mean? And can't just go and have the safe political interviews anymore. But it is us keeping these people accountable. And then also, you know, I think it also just starts with even like local representation. We had a guy running for Hector Oseguera running for a local office here from Jersey, and you know, talking about how important it is to get involved in your local politics as well, not just to think, oh, the president solves everything, you know. So all those things.
Totally. Yeah, like my homegirl, she we basically like grew up together in like the downtown scene, and she directed music videos for me and for other people. And you know, because of the political climate, she wants to make a better world for her son. And she decided to leave. I mean, she's still an artist no matter what, but she went back to school and she became a lawyer and is like a civil, you know, advocate, and is doing big things.
No, it's beautiful. And we've talked about on previous things that a lot of time, especially like in Hispanic community, I feel like the older generation sort of just wanted to stay quiet because they didn't want to upset the herd. You know what I mean? Unfortunately, that's the way when they felt like just privileged to be here, you know? And now us younger, we belong, you know, we know we belong here. We're unafraid to use our voices. We're the ones now beginning to set the tone. And we just have to, I guess, it does get frustrating, but also understand we are very early on in the process of like being able to change history. You know what I mean? These are hundreds of years of things that we're trying to fight against right now. And I just think those are kind of, it does get frustrating, but those are things we all have to kind of keep in mind, you know?
Right.
So I wanted to ask you, how much responsibility do you feel it is for yourself as an artist? Obviously, like a bunch of motherfuckers love your music. How much responsibility do you feel it is to open up about your day-to-day life, open up about your spiritual practices, open up about your views outside of, because a lot of people think it's all supposed to exist in the music. But in reality, it's like, no, the artist decides what they want to make music about, but it's not necessarily like everything that you live and everything that you are has to make it into a lyric. So like, can you give us a little bit of perspective on like you, like, I mean, you were telling us before, like you have an 8 a.m. practice going on right now, and you're being like, you're presenting now on your social media and all that stuff. It's just like, yeah, like what motivates you? You know what I mean? To be more open outside of just online.
To be more open. So I mean, so it's a question like, do I feel responsibility to the public to put my stuff
like,
out there?
Exactly.
Or,
like,
I mean,
what's your
to be
take on the
honest with you,
responsibility
like,
of that? Exactly.
I don't think we have a response. We don't owe anyone like anything. You know, I have a responsibility to myself to do whatever to do whatever I need to do. You know, that to make sure that I'm like, I feel safe and secure. You know, I feel like, and that's another thing too. It's like, you know, this idea that and there's many levels of it, you know. I mean, obviously, I'm not like you know, there's like the Cardi B level, right? And you know, when you get to that level, you know, people really think you owe them. It's really crazy. It's really nutso. And but yeah, like you know, and we forget about like, you know, and some people are in it for the money. Some people are making shit for the money, you know what I mean? But a lot of us are making it, you know, art because like we need it. Like for me, the opposite of depression is not happiness, it's expression. So when I'm expressing, I'm not depressed, right? And so, you know, I don't know anybody anything. I put what I want out when I want it. Although I will say, and you know, it's very important for us, for people, you know, for brown people, for first generation people to be visible. So I do think that that's very, very important because we need to expand each other. So for example, if you're not making music and if you're not, you know, if you didn't have the show, like how would the next young person know that it's if they're not seeing representation, you know? So, but in terms of the content, I don't necessarily think I owe, and I think that's weird too. You know, I'm like, that's so weird that people want to know what I'm eating. When it's like, oh, this. You know what I mean? I feel like we're all voyeurs, you know, but yeah.
No, I asked because it's very good. I like your answer because for me, I'm an artist and I don't know how to like put the camera on and just be like, all right, so this is what I think about. You know what I mean? Like, the dramas hit me and we're like, oh, let's start a podcast. Okay, bet. Now here's an outlet that I'm comfortable with being consistently present in my face being out there and my ideas being shared. And now more than ever, there is like you said, that's why I left it kind of open-ended. Like stardom appears to have this responsibility of being consistently open and consistently vulnerable about your day-to-day practices and opinions on everything for a fan base to feel like they can connect to you. You know what I mean? And maybe that's like this window of fame, like this new window, because for so long, stardom depended on distance. Stardom depended on if you didn't read about it in a magazine and there's one blurb, or if I decided to not go to the radio or whatever the case may be, there was no other way to like temperature check or connect with your fan base. But because of social media and so many people taking advantage of that new bridge and the new ability to connect, now it's like, oh, they can ask you about, oh, you said that line about food. You said, oh, they work out every day. Like that motivates me. Now I want to listen to their music more, like them being more humanized. But it also becomes dangerous because it's like how much like my art is an expression of who I am, but I am more than the song. I am more than my clothes. I am more than my hairstyle. I am more than all of these things. And then there starts becoming this dangerous line where people are like reaching for more fame and the expulsion of themselves and then forgetting it was all about like the music, why they visited you in the first place. So I would just find it really interesting when people feel like being open, you know?
No, for sure. And, so I think, and I'm just mulling over your question. I think we do have a responsibility to be visible.
Yes.
Now, what you choose to put out there, that's the responsibility for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But I do think we do have a responsibility to one another to, because these systems are trying to marginalize. They're trying to tell us, like, we don't exist, we don't have a voice, we don't belong, we don't deserve, we're not worthy. And so I think it's very important for us to, like, take up as much space as possible. But obviously, like, like, it should come from an authentic place. You know what I mean?
I fuck with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you definitely
like exactly what you guys decided to do. I think it's great.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I mean, I think it's just like, I think it's an interesting sort of balance. It's also always at the end of, like you said, it has to be whatever you feel comfortable sharing, right? But I also do think, I think people are searching for a connection, you know what I mean? Or people are searching for almost, I don't want to say validation, but I think people are looking for, like, almost agreeing. It's like, wow, like, I look up to this person. I enjoy what they do, their creations, their art. And then, they also feel the same way I do. They might have a bout with depression. They might have these different things. And I think that that is, and obviously there are some people just, like, love the gossip, love this and that. But I also think there is a large portion that want to know that they're not the only one going through this, and then seeing somebody who is what they deem to be successful, or deemed to be in a position of power, or deemed to be living the life that they want to live, also struggling with the same thing. I think there is that connection that they feel, you know what I mean? There is, like, this almost validation sort of peace of mind that comes along with being like, well, wow, this same thing I'm feeling affects people of all different levels, of quote unquote success in life, so I think there is that aspect. So there is sort of this importance as well, though, to have that sort of open dialogue with your audience as well. That's kind of how I view it for my own personal, self when I communicate with people.
Totally. And I do think that a lot of people are looking for permission, and I'm not saying that in a negative way. I do think that a lot of people, and including myself at one point, was looking, and particularly in regards to my story as a first generationer, the programming that I had is, you can't do anything until you have your parents' permission.
Right.
Like, what do you mean you want to sing? Like, no, you can't move to Williamsburg.
Right. Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, and so, you know what I mean? There was like, no, like, you do nothing until we say you can do it. Like,
doesn't matter how old you are. Yeah.
And I was always fighting and pushing against that. And so I think a lot of us are looking for permission. Am I allowed to live my life the way I want to? And then until I got to the place where I was, like, giving myself the permission, like, I like, being unapologetic about things. So I hope that's maybe through osmosis, that's what I can give to, like, the people who fucks with me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, do you know what I mean? Like, permission to, like, give yourself permission,
Yeah.
And a lot of them are, like, people's, first and second generation, you know what I mean? Who are stuck in, like, in school, or who are out of school and have, like, thousands and thousands of dollars in debt, because their parents wanted them to be something, and they want to be something else. And are they allowed to be something else,
That's huge. No, I love that, because
I love that.
That is such a thing that plagues our community, because unfortunately our parents are dealing with their own sort of I'm not sure what the word would be. They're dealing with their own sort of issues when it comes to feeling like the rug can be pulled from under them at any time. You know what I mean? So they're now trying to set us up to never have to feel that way. And in their mind, it is these traditional routes of college, job, white picket fence, blah, blah, blah type of thing, and the fear of going down a path that is uncertain, unknown, that seems kind of crazy to them, almost seems like it might set them back for all that they've worked for at this point, and I think, and also the asking for permission thing, I think by nature, our families, it's like you have no choice, but your family's always in your business. You know what I mean? Like we that's the way we were raised.
Yeah, exactly.
Like they have an opinion on everything you do, who you're dating, every little aspect of your life. No matter how old you are, they always are there, and you're always a kid in their eyes. You know what I'm saying? And it's hard to break that. It's hard to break that fear that they have that they pass along to us. That's really what it is. They have their own fears, and that sets their own limitations, and they pass that along to us. And it's not because of like on a negative thing. It's they have their concern. They want the best for us. You know what I mean? They don't want us to have to struggle the way they did in their minds. Us going down this weird, uncertain path of arts and creativity is sort of going down this path of the unknown. There is a fear based upon that. So yeah, you're right. It is important for us to like talk about that kind of stuff, because that is a lot of things that I see people who are within our community and that younger generation within our community. It's like I see it there. I see like their parent guilting them into doing something, you know what I mean, and them creating that fear and like that anxiety that comes along with not wanting to like upset your parents and this and that. And it's important to like have these kinds of conversations. I thought that was huge what you just said.
I worked with this. I had this intern and I was mentoring this young girl from Puerto Rico. And I met her at the Brooklyn. I did his talk for the teens at the Brooklyn Museum. And a bunch of them came to see me, and it was like this girl's birthday. Wow. And like their idea of fun is like, oh, let's go to the museum and go to this talk. And I'm like, what are you guys doing after? And they're like, what do you mean? Yeah. I'm like, in my head, I'm like, I was getting fucked up at 13, going to the club anyways, whatever.
Yeah.
So this girl, she started working with me, and a photographer, and she was helping me. I was on tour, and she was helping me with a lot of my, social media content. And I remember, she was always like, do you want me to do this or do you want me to do this? Oh, I'm sorry. And I was like, no. Like, number rules, stop saying I'm sorry and go take pictures. You don't need my permission to, just go take any kind of pictures that you want to take. Right. What do you see? And I remember at first she was like, and then little by little, she really understood, I hired you because from what you showed me, I like what you do. So go do what you do.
Right.
And I'm like, and you're a woman in this kind of business. Stop saying you're sorry.
Yeah, it's true. We all, it's good to have mentors like that kind of break you through that and push you beyond that. Actually, one thing I found interesting, I want to kind of have you talk about a little bit. You talk about partying when you were young and all these things. Like, I know you've sort of made a shift in your life towards health, right? And taking responsibility in that. For you, what was that sort
Congratulations, by the way, too.
Yeah, absolutely. Congrats. And
thank you.
It's a beautiful thing, and I think that I would love for people younger to even start learning those lessons without having to go through different, hardships and things like that. So for you, what was like that shift that you really started placing a priority on your health?
Well, when you're waking up, from hangovers every single day, from doing so much blow and your bank account, you got nothing left in your bank account.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, ooh. Right. I don't know. I mean, yeah. But another thing too is like I grew up with a lot of people who were like straight edge punks. You know what I mean? A lot of kids who were just a lot of kids like that.
Yeah.
So, and I think a lot of people have like this misconception, like I'm sober. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I smoke cigarettes and drink coffee. That's like my only vice.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not doing drugs, none of that kind of stuff. But I still have fun. Like you don't need, like, I don't need, the drugs and the shit just to have like a fucking good time. Like I'm at the club, I'm turning up, not like you turning up, but I'm still turning up, and even more fun, because I'm feeling everything. I'm like, whoa, like a roller coaster is not the same when you're sober, I'm just saying.
No, that's beautiful. And I think it's important that we as a people, especially if it's like your own people, like stop holding each other to a higher pedestal than we upkeep ourselves. Like we're allowed to make mistakes. We're allowed to like slip back and forth. And as long as we keep each other in check and accountable, it's dope. And but we're not perfect. It's like this if I could find this interview, I think you would really fuck with it. This healer, he's being interviewed and he says, I haven't quit cigarettes, but I haven't smoked one in 40 years. You know what I mean? Where it's like, let's take off this pressure of like perfection. Let's take off this pressure of just like appearing as like holier than thou. And it's just like, man, like follow your own instincts and what makes you feel good. And if that ends up being for the rest of your life, then so be it. But like, you know, as long as the decisions you're making for the most part average out to like making you feel good, like that's the only
totally. And you know, and my other thing is like I always say, just because I don't turn up doesn't mean you have to turn down. You know what I mean?
And it don't mean you're not
we all out
like,
here, you know exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So I'm, you know, I'm not precious about that kind of stuff.
Right.
I'm not precious about you know, I feel like we all are on our own journey. Some people are on the M15, some people's on a scooter, some people's taking a walk to wherever the journey it is, some people's on a hyperjet.
No, we should be allowed to, yes.
You know,
we should be allowed to embrace our darkness too. So, like that's even like your name, Maluca, like bad woman, like Maluca Mala, like you're just like. But then it's like I don't get destruction and demoness. You know what I mean? Like a demonic vibe. I don't get the perils of the world from your music. I get. You know what I'm saying? Like I get revolution. I get in the form of joy. Like. I was just watching the NYC Baby joint. I'm like, yo, it's like my favorite joint out of all of the videos and songs I was peeping. I'm like, yo, this is just like, it's just good energy. You know what I'm saying?
Me too. Like,
Like, that shit is actually
I love that.
Like for real. Yeah. Yes.
I should re-release it. I want to re-release it now.
Yeah.
I'm going to do that. I'm going to re-release it.
That joint is fire because like for me, it's also just like, it feels like I'm listening to a complete human being at this point. Like, especially with the video and it's just like who's holding her back? You know what I mean? Like, and that's just beautiful. You know, we're allowed to embrace all our dark and that's just going to make us more whole as people and better artists in total. And, you know,
cool.
Yeah. Anything people should know? What you got going on that people should know about?
I don't got shit going on, but I also have everything going on at the same time. So
right.
You know, just stay tuned. You never know what's gonna happen. You just stay tuned. Just stay tuned. Like that. You know, tell everybody to go to my Instagram. Stay tuned.
Right.
Because we're living, each day is really a new motherfucking day.
Right.
Kind of. You know, it's like also, anyways, listen, I can talk about esoteric shit another level. It's like time doesn't even exist anymore.
Right.
You know? So
facts.
I love it. All right, go follow her at Maluca Mala, but on IG and all that good stuff. You should definitely re-release that song, by the way. I feel like it didn't get enough love. Like there's definitely something there for sure.
No, yeah, for sure. I think I'm gonna do a new music video. So we'll see.
Dope.
No.
I fuck with it. Well, listen, we appreciate you. Thank you so much for hopping on here. First Generation Talks was episode
6. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Stay safe out there, man.
Keep following your heart.
Bye, guys. Thank you. And let's stay connected on Instagram.
Yes.
I got you.
And good luck to you guys. And let me know how I can continue to support you guys.
Absolutely. Likewise.
It's love.
Okay. Good luck with everything.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.